Bernie Sanders is in the UK and Wes Streeting is not impressed.
When we've had these waves of strikes recently, you and your colleagues have been extremely tentative about going anywhere near picket lines. And for a lot of people, not just on the hard left, that seems right. Now, this is what, if you just listen for a second, I was talking to Bernie Sanders, who is, as it were, the American version of Jeremy Corbyn. Very different.
I don't know how you have a political party that stands for anything if they don't stand with the working class of this country. And I think why so many people get demoralized and alienated from the political process is they see the people on top doing phenomenally well, and they're saying, who is standing with me? Who is worried about the future of my kid? Whether I can afford to send my kid to college? Who is worried about whether I can pay the rent? And you need, in my view, political parties in the United States, in the UK, all over the world, who say, you know what? We're prepared to take on powerful special interests. We're going to stand with the working class, with the unions.
Now, he didn't prevail in the end. There'll be more of that interview later, but he's not wrong, is he?
We're not a party of protest. We're a party that wants to be in government, so we can make a difference for working people.
He's talking about taking on the big vested interest and the vast inequalities in society.
That's what Labour governments do. And with respect to Bernie Sanders, I genuinely think if he'd won the Democratic nomination, he wouldn't have beat Donald Trump at the election. America would be under Trumpism. Instead, they went for Joe Biden. And I remember all the criticism from all of the, self-appointed talking heads for the left in Britain who were saying, Biden's boring, Biden's too centrist, Biden isn't going to deliver for working people. But look at Joe Biden's ambitious domestic plan. Look at what he's doing to accelerate America towards net zero, to make sure that the American, there's more buying, making, selling of American goods for American people, creating good jobs and wages.
Though, to be fair,
and he can do that because he won.
Biden did pick up quite a lot of the Sanders agenda. They sat down together and they thrashed out a compromise, which is a bit like you guys sitting down Momentum and agreeing a compromise position, which I don't see happening anytime soon.
Well, I think the comparison with Momentum is very uncharitable to Bernie Sanders. I wouldn't put him in that bucket. But I do think that in terms of what a Labour government will do, and you look at those missions we've set out, I mean, it wasn't just growth, it was inclusive growth. That's at the heart of that pledge, growth in every part of the country. Look at what I'm saying about tackling health inequalities in our country. If you're serious about doing that, you have to deal with the social determinants of health, poverty, poor quality housing, low wages. So we are ambitious and absolutely delivering. I mean, I'm a kid from a council estate.
You know what is the opposite of Bernie Sanders? His words like inclusive growth. Like, it doesn't mean anything, right? Credit to Joe Biden. I know there'll be criticisms of his presidency, but one thing he seemed to learn from left populism is that you do have to call out your enemies. You do have to call out the people who you might want to tax more, for example, right? We haven't seen that from Starmer yet. In any case, Bernie Sanders has responded to Wes Streeting. He did so when speaking to the News Agents podcast.
After you spoke last night, there was a senior Labour politician who went on the radio, a guy called Wes Streeting. I'm sure you don't know. He could be the next health secretary if the Labour Party win the next general election. This is what he had to say.
We're not a party of protest. We're a party that wants to be in government, so we can make a difference for working people.
He's talking about taking on the big vested interest and the vast inequalities in society.
That's what Labour governments do. And with respect to Bernie Sanders, I genuinely think if he'd won the Democratic nomination, he wouldn't have beat Donald Trump at the election. America would be under Trumpism.
Let me inform that gentleman, who I do not know, that every poll that was done during that period had me defeating Trump, and I believe I would have defeated Trump.
That man who I do not know. Aaron, what can we say about the flame war between Bernie Sanders and Wes Streeting?
Wes Streeting is incredibly small time, which means he's probably going to be the leader of the Labour Party after Keir Starmer. He's incredibly small time. He even has to be factional against the guy who's not in the same country as him. He's saying we're not a party of protest, we're a party of government. Wes, would you like Bernie's formal role? He is, let me get this right, the chair of the Senate Health, Education, Labour and Pensions Committee. Health, Education, Labour and Pensions. That sounds like quite an important job. Sounds to me like he's probably administering quite a lot. That doesn't sound like protest, Wes. Interesting, isn't it? And then he goes on about, I live in a council. I'm from a council estate. Michael Walker lives in a council flat. You pay £800 a month for the privilege, Michael. That's the difference. We've all lived in council flats and council houses in London. The point is they're not free anymore. Okay? I was paying to live in a room in a council flat. I was paying £600 a month. You pay £800 a month. So the idea this is somehow cultural cachet for a permanent political class, a tiny slither of which comes from council flats and houses, the ones which haven't been privatised, is obscene. And the point Sanders makes, Michael, about his popularity, in 2017, he was the most popular politician in the United States, according to YouGov. And there's a poll from Ipsos done for USA Today. In 2020, Americans were asked, let me get this up because I don't want to get the numbers wrong. Americans were asked who was most sort of congruent with their values, who agreed with their values most. 39%, this is Ipsos, 39% said Bernie Sanders. 30% said Joe Biden, 31% said Trump. So 39% of Americans said, my value is the same as Sanders in 2020. Right? 30% say Biden, 31% say Trump. And as he said, in terms of actually who would you like to be the president, Sanders was ahead. So Wes Streeting's arguments here are based upon fantasy in his brain, which, okay, I know that's good enough for the British media, Wes, because, my goodness, they're not very good at their job. But once you're confronted, actually, with an effective politician, who is a machine, by the way, to persuade conservatives and bring them left, which is Bernie Sanders, you look like an idiot. You look stupid. You look silly. Stop it. You know, stick to the factionalism, stick to attacking the left in this country, because in that instance, at least the media will help you. And when you're out on your own, son, it doesn't end well. You look rather stupid.